Hey guys, it's Tomotoda. So, I've been debating whether or not to make this video because it's kind of all over the place and a lot of stuff didn't go as planned, I guess. But I just absolutely totally love how these little wands turned out and I want to show them off. I want to flex. Which is why I decided to go ahead with the video, but in a more maybe blog type fashion rather than like a regular tutorial, cause fuck it. So first, I got the inspiration for these when I received these teal colored straw-like beads. They were extras from an AliExpress order and I was like, oh my gosh, I could make a wand out of this. So I did a drawing of them first, but because my drawing skills are very limited, they kind of look like candy, but I knew when I actually made them, they would look like wands. So I searched some more on AliExpress and found that the beads actually came in other colors as well, and I went ahead, ordered those. The beads surprisingly arrived very quickly. They even threw a little free pearl bead in there. But there was one issue with these. Some of the colors flaked off, especially on the teal and red ones. I didn't notice it earlier, but after I was about to start the project, I saw it, and after scratching all of them, it was just the red and teal ones that had this problem. Wah wah. Anyways, I just began crafting and everything started out good. It started out normal. I first used some scrap polymer clay to shape the beads so that I can cast them into a mold. And if you guys want to know in more detail how this process goes, I would suggest watching my Ditto pencil cap tutorial because I'm just gonna gloss over it in this video. I might make a better polymer clay mold casting tutorial in the future, but for now, this is what I can offer. And according to the drawing I drew, I made a tomato, a bunny, a Pikachu, and I threw in an extra pussy. After I baked the beads, I drilled a bead hole into each of the heads, and using my 3D printed clay cutters I bought from Etsy, I started building the containment for the mold. And for some reason, I wanted them to be in separate small molds. I didn't want them to be in one big mold. I don't know why, but at that time it seemed so logical, and now I'm just thinking that it was stupid. There was no reason for that to happen. Either way, after my setup was done, I placed the beads inside and realized because the bottom wasn't flat, it would actually be hard to pop them out of the mold. So I sanded them down and placed it back in, making sure that the bottom was as flush to the tape as possible. I started making my silicone solution. I used Dragon Skin 20. It cures translucent, which is a must if you want to use your mold for UV resin, which is what I'm gonna do. As usual, I mixed in part A and part B, and then I slowly started pouring that shit in. The bead hole had some trouble, the bubble inside was just stuck, so I used my needle tool to push the silicone in. Unfortunately, some of them failed and didn't go all the way through, which you might be able to see later. And also, I made a fucking mess. But it's okay, cause my table has glass over it, so when the silicone cures, it's easy to clean up. After waiting a day for the silicone to cure, I took everything out of the mold and I removed some of the excess silicone with this nail cuticle tool, and then I popped out all the model beads and cleaned up more of the excess. Now this is where things didn't quite go as planned, so it was time to make my UV resin solution. I first put some glitter into a cup and I added a tiny bit of colored alcohol ink to color the resin. The key thing is to make sure that your solution mixture isn't opaque or too opaque. It needs to still be somewhat translucent. Or that's what I kept telling myself in my head, but it kind of didn't happen. So I kept adding more resin into the mixture to dilute it so it becomes transparent or translucent. And the reason why it shouldn't be opaque is because the insides will never cure. The outside will look solid, but if you squeeze, you can see that the resin inside is still liquid. And no matter how long you keep it under the UV lamp, the light just can't penetrate it and harden the resin. Either way, I ran out of fucking resin anyways. I had to order more online, and in the meanwhile, I just kept all the cups in a dark closet. 1 week later, I got my new bottle of UV resin and was ready to continue. But as I was filming, the video recorder app that I usually use for my videos, it just wasn't working very well, so I had no choice but to use the Foodie app because I don't really like the default iPhone video app. But the colors either way were kind of whack. So the colors that you see on the screen is going to be a little bit different from what I am narrating. Moving on, I was having a lot of trouble with the yellow. My mixture looked very, very neon yellowish in real life, and I did not like that. So I added a drop of white, and the color was perfect, but it made it too opaque. So I grabbed another cup and tried to dilute the mixture using the pigments from the first cup. But when it was diluted, it looked neon yellow again. And I was like, fuck it, let's see what it looks like when I cure it into the Pikachu mold. And the results were not very satisfactory. In person, this ear area was so translucent that you can barely see any yellow at all, and I was just not happy with it. Although the opaque one was actually perfect in color in the ears, however, it just would not cure on the inside, so I had to add more pigment into the new mixture, and I added just a little bit, but that was enough for it to become opaque again and not be able to cure. Like, it looked so translucent, but I guess it just was not. So once again, I grabbed another cup and I made another diluted mixture into the new cup, and it was neon yellow again, and I knew I should have learned from my mistake, but something inside of me was telling me that it would be different this time. It wasn't. I added a little bit more pigment and it became opaque, and you know what ultimately happened? I just failed and ended up wasting half of my new UV resin bottle. Half of it. I was just so mad at myself. I even tried using yellow powder pigment. It just... no. And I think for the yellow, what I needed to use was resin pigment. But I didn't want to buy it because I already have so many other kinds of pigments. I wanted to work with what I already had. In the end, I called it a day, gave up on the yellow and the Pikachu. The next day, my filming app wasn't working properly again, so I took it as a sign to finally buy an actual camera for my YouTube channel. Thanks to the recommendation of Vincent Ferrari, I decided to get the Canon PowerShot SX740. Unfortunately, it was sold out at Best Buy, in-store and online. And also, it was sold out on the B&H website, and Amazon had it, but I don't know if they have it. They said that they could deliver it to us in January. This was the beginning of December, mind you, so I didn't want to wait like a month long. But I did manage to track one down at a Murphy's camera location, and I called them and they said, yeah, this is the only one that they have left, and they just took it out of the box to put on display yesterday. So I was like, fuck it! I drove there immediately and I bought it. On my way back home, my husband was like, do you have a tripod for this camera? And I said, yeah, I have my mic stand. I could just screw it on there. Well, I fucking failed again, cause what I didn't realize was that the mic stand screw was too big for my camera screw. So I went on Amazon and bought an adapter which would arrive in 2 days. In the meanwhile, I made like a temporary tripod for the camera and just continued working on the beads. Here's me demolding some of the beads, and I even poured it into the Pikachu cavity, and as you can see, the pink turned out really well in color and it hardened completely through, even though it's not like completely transparent. So I don't know, I think it's just the yellow that yellow's always an issue no matter what for some reason. Anyways, at first I made red, white, and pink beads, But then I was talking to Bella Talks BB Glow Drew about Sailor Moon, and he inspired me to make purple ones. And this whole time though, I thought Luna and Artemis's kid was purple/lavender, but now that I Google it, it says she's actually gray. Sorry for the mistake. I haven't seen Sailor Moon since I was much younger, but the conversation I had with Drew kind of like lingered in the back of my head the entire day, because I always assumed that Sailor Moon was 18, not 14, which also reminded me of Cardcaptors, because I used to be a huge Cardcaptor fan when I was in elementary school, but then when I rewatched it this year, I realized there's a lot of things that I did not piece together as a child, but as an adult, I see it. Moving on, I drilled in the holes into the bead because it wasn't really perfect, and I started sanding off the excess resin at the bottom using my electric nail drill. When I cured the resin earlier before, I actually made it overflow at the top so that it kind of domes. Remember how I sanded the bottom of the polymer clay flat? Well, because I domed it, I can now just round it off when I file it in order to get a complete circular bead, if that makes sense. 2 days later, I get my adapter in the mail, and it's not the fucking right one. I was supposed to get a 3/8 to 1/4 converter, but for some stupid reason, I bought a 5/8 to 1/4 converter. I am an idiot. My mic stand actually came with a 3/8 to 5/8 converter, so I could have just screwed the adapter into the other adapter, but I actually fucking lost that one long time ago. So me being the impatient person that I am, I immediately checked the Home Depot website hoping that they might have an adapter that I can buy, and it looked like they had a 3/8 to 1/4 adapter. So I was so excited and I drove to Home Depot. Then I realized that I didn't bring my fucking wallet, so I drove back home to get it and drove back to Home Depot. But when I saw the product in person, the adapter just didn't look right, and yeah, it wasn't the right one. I know it's my fault. I should have paid closer attention to the website listing, but I think I just hoping, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, not gonna lie, I was in a pretty cranky mood. Home Depot absolutely did not have the adapter. Either way, when I got home, I made sure it was the correct adapter, and I bought it on Amazon, which would arrive in another 2 days. Unfortunately, completely unrelated to this craft, I was going through some things, like I had some not so great experiences and events happen in my personal life, so I kind of had a meltdown and just needed to take a break from everything, which is why I didn't touch this project again until the day after Christmas, I believe, but that's when I started feeling better and I'm doing fine now. But yes, I got the new adapters and they worked perfectly fine, just as I needed them to. So moving on, the next step was to paint the details of the face. I like to use Posca paint pens and I slather the ink into the crevices. Once it dries, I just take acetone on a cotton pad and wipe off the excess. Then I colored in the cute little cheeks and the cute little ears. Oh, and putting them on toothpicks kind of helps me get a better grip on the beads. Next, I took whatever leftover UV resin I had at that point and I coated the beads in 2 thin layers, of course curing them in between each layer, but 2 was perfect enough. And I was glad, even though I wasted so much, I still had enough to finish this project. Now here is my army of bead heads. I was about to assemble the wands together, but I realized that the straw beads here had jagged broken ends, so I sanded them down flat, and yes, if you've noticed, after so many months, I finally remembered to buy sandpaper. Now it's really time to put the wands together. I used some rhinestone rondelle beads and different sized bead caps to give it more of a wand type look, and I think it did a great job. My husband saw these and said, "You should make them into earrings," and I was like, okay. But there was a minor problem, as usual with crafting. The bunny wands were fine as is because the loops at the top, it doesn't really spin around that much, so the bunny will always be facing forward. But for the cat ones, the wire loop, it spins around a lot really easily. And if I made them into earrings, I didn't want it to flip over onto the backside when you like wear them. So I had an idea to Gorilla Glue the cat beads onto the wire so that the loop stays in put. And not gonna lie, just from the thought of that, I was already sweating balls in case like it didn't work and got really complicated or messy. But thankfully, it worked really well, and the mess was just a little bit, so it was easy to clean up. Here are a few of the wands before I attached them onto earring backings. I was super duper in love with the results. Like in person, they look so amazing. And I just enjoyed moving them around and touching them. You know, I'm not a perv. But as you can see here, they're all earrings now, and this is the final result. Yay! Thank you guys for watching this shit show, and thank you guys for all of your loving support. Like, for reals, guys. I'll see you next time. Happy New Year. Bye bye.